It happened to Susan on a morning like any other. As she reached for her coffee, her legs buckled. No warning, no pain, just collapse. What's terrifying isn't the fall, it's what silently led her there. Doctors now warn, 5 hidden mistakes are quietly shortening the lives of women over 60, and most don't even realize it. Let's uncover them together. Have you ever told yourself, I feel fine, so I must be okay? That's precisely what Susan believed, until that morning proved otherwise. You see, aging doesn't strike like lightning. It creeps in quietly, hidden behind daily habits that feel harmless, until they're not. Doctors now warn that for many older women, it's not one significant illness that steals years away. It's small, silent mistakes that we overlook, dismiss, or simply don't know. And here's the frightening part. Most of these mistakes aren't caused by age itself. They're preventable, reversible, changeable. Today we'll walk together through 5 of the deadliest mistakes that quietly chip away at your health, confidence, and future. And by the end, you'll see how small changes can add not just years, but vibrant, beautiful years. Let's begin, because your future self is counting on you. It's not the big storms that sink ships, it's the tiny leaks you don't notice until it's too late. Susan always thought aging would announce itself loudly. Chest pain, high fevers, or some dramatic diagnosis. But that morning, when her legs failed her, the real enemy had been quietly working inside her for years. Silent inflammation. Inflammation isn't always harmful. When you cut your finger, your body sends inflammation to heal. But when your body fights an invisible battle 24/7, it becomes something far more dangerous when that response never turns off. Doctors call it chronic low-grade inflammation, but I call it the slow fire. Susan didn't feel the fire. Most women don't. There were no flames she could see. She brushed aside minor signs, a little joint stiffness in the morning, a foggy head after lunch, and occasional stomach upset. Just part of getting older, she thought. But that fire was smoldering inside her arteries, her joints, and even her brain. If any of this sounds familiar, stay with me, because in a moment, you'll learn how this slow fire may be affecting you too, even if you feel perfectly fine today. You see, this silent inflammation quietly damages the lining of blood vessels, stiffens arteries, disrupts insulin function, and even accelerates cognitive decline. Studies from Harvard and the Mayo Clinic have linked chronic inflammation to nearly every primary disease we fear as we age: heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, arthritis, dementia. So, where does this fire come from? For Susan, it started with tiny choices that seemed harmless. A sugary muffin with her morning coffee. Processed low-fat meals that were loaded with hidden chemicals. Late-night snacks are often salty and packaged. Skipping short walks because it's too chilly today. Over time, these small habits fed the fire. Elevated blood sugar, belly fat, and high triglycerides fuel inflammation. The danger is, unlike a fever or sharp pain, chronic inflammation whispers. It doesn't demand your attention until the damage is done. But here's the hope. This isn't destiny. Doctors now know that lifestyle, not just age, drives most of this fire. And Susan's story proves it. The alarm bells rang when her doctor finally ran tests, including her C-reactive protein CRP levels. But instead of piling on medications, they focused on calming the fire naturally. Swapping processed snacks for colorful vegetables, adding omega-3 rich foods like salmon and walnuts, replacing soda with water and green tea. Gentle daily walks to keep blood flowing. Within months, her energy returned. The fog lifted. Most importantly, her blood markers improved dramatically. The lesson? You don't have to wait for a medical crisis to extinguish the fire. Because sometimes, saving your life begins with noticing the tiny leaks before the ship sinks. It's not what you do while awake that always shortens your life. Sometimes, it's what you're missing while you sleep. Susan believed she had managed fine for years, with 5 or 6 hours of sleep. After all, something always needed her attention. Early morning appointments, grandchildren to babysit, or late-night television shows that helped her wind down. She told herself, I've never needed much sleep anyway. But her body was telling a different story. You see, sleep isn't just rest, it's repair. While we sleep, our bodies perform thousands of tiny miracles. Balancing hormones, clearing toxins from the brain, repairing cells, and resetting the heart and immune system. Missing even one cycle robs the body of this vital work. Susan didn't realize that her occasional forgetfulness, rising blood pressure, and even those stubborn extra pounds were all whispering signs of sleep deprivation slowly building up over the years. Studies from the National Sleep Foundation show that adults over 60 who regularly sleep fewer than 7 hours a night face significantly higher risks of stroke, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even dementia. Worse, poor sleep leads to elevated cortisol, the stress hormone that encourages belly fat and inflammation, fueling the same silent fire we discussed earlier. At first, Susan blamed her restless nights on aging. It's normal to sleep less when you get older. But aging doesn't cause poor sleep. Lifestyle and habits often do. The little things added up. Caffeine in the afternoon, scrolling her phone before bed, exposing her eyes to blue light, keeping the TV on for background noise, worrying about things she couldn't control. And each night of lost rest became a silent withdrawal from her health savings account. Her turning point came when she read a simple line from her doctor. Sleep is your body's nightly medicine, but you have to take the full dose. With some adjustments, Susan slowly rebuilt her sleep sanctuary. She created a consistent bedtime routine, going to bed and waking at the same time each day. She limited screen time to an hour before bed, choosing light reading or soft music. She cooled her bedroom slightly and added blackout curtains to block outside lights. And perhaps most importantly, she learned calming breathing exercises to quiet her racing mind. Within weeks, Susan began waking up truly refreshed, not groggy and dragging. Her mood improved, her blood pressure stabilized, and her doctor noted better blood sugar control at her next checkup. Sleep isn't a luxury. It's one of the most potent anti-aging medicines available, free, natural, and deeply restorative. Susan discovered that by simply honoring her body's need for rest, she was adding years to her life, and life to her years. It's not always the diseases that shorten our lives. Sometimes, it's the quiet comfort we settle into. After her retirement, Susan often joked that she'd finally earned the right to slow down. The early mornings were gone, the busy workdays behind her. Now, most afternoons were spent in her favorite armchair by the living room window, reading, watching her shows, chatting on the phone. Harmless, right? But day by day, hour by hour, that chair silently stole something far more precious than time. You see, our bodies are designed for motion. Movement isn't just about burning calories. It fuels circulation, stimulates the lymphatic system, strengthens muscles, supports bone density, and keeps the mind sharp. But when we sit too long, we send a message to every system in the body. You don't need to work as hard anymore. For Susan, it started subtly. Her legs felt weaker. She noticed shortness of breath walking up the porch steps. Then came the backaches, the stiff joints, and those moments of feeling dizzy when standing up too quickly. The American Heart Association has long warned that sitting more than 6 hours a day dramatically increases the risk of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and even certain cancers. One study from the University of Sydney found that prolonged sitting may double the risk of premature death, even for those who exercise occasionally. And for older adults like Susan, the risk doesn't stop there. When muscles weaken from disuse, balance declines. Blood pools in the legs, raising the chance of dangerous clots. Bones grow fragile from a lack of weight-bearing movement. It's a slow unraveling, one that too often leads to falls, fractures, hospitalizations, and loss of independence. The trap is that sitting feels safe, comfortable, deserved. But comfort can be deceptive. Susan's wake-up call came when her neighbor Evelyn, only a few years older, was hospitalized after a minor trip in her kitchen led to a hip fracture. Evelyn had spent most of her days just like Susan, reading, resting, enjoying retirement. Until that moment, her body couldn't catch itself. Susan knew then she had to make a change, not by joining a gym or running marathons, but by breaking up the long stretches of sitting. She set a simple rule. Every 30 minutes, move for 2. Standing stretches while waiting for coffee, marching in place during commercials, light housework or short walks around the yard, gentle yoga sessions in the morning. These small movements reawakened her muscles, improved her circulation, and even lifted her mood. Over time, Susan felt stronger, steadier, and more vibrant. She wasn't giving up rest. She was giving her body what it was designed to do. Move, circulate, thrive. Because sometimes the most dangerous place isn't out there. It's right there. In the chair that holds us too long. Most people fear losing their memory or their heart failing. But few realize the most silent organ we lose first is our muscle. For most of her life, Susan never saw herself as the athletic type. She was active enough, gardening, cooking, chasing grandkids, but never did anything she'd consider strength training. And why would she? Muscles were for athletes, not grandmothers. But what Susan, like many, didn't realize was this. Muscle isn't just about strength. It's a living, active organ that protects nearly every part of your health. And after age 50, we start losing it. Quietly, steadily, and dangerously. Doctors call it sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass. Studies show that after 50, adults lose 1 to 2% of their muscle every year if nothing is done. That's not just a weakness. That's reduced balance, slower metabolism, insulin resistance, weaker bones, and a much higher risk of falls. Susan's first hint was subtle. She noticed it was harder to rise from her favorite chair. Then, carrying grocery bags left her breathless. Even climbing stairs became something she dreaded. Her muscles were shrinking, and with them, her confidence. If you've ever felt a little more unsteady or struggled to get out of a chair lately, stay with me because this next part could change everything for you. One afternoon, after struggling to lift her suitcase for a short trip, Susan's daughter gently suggested a simple solution. "Mom, maybe it's time to build your strength back. Not for looks, but for life." Susan was hesitant. She pictured loud gyms, heavy weights, and intimidating equipment. But she soon learned that building muscle after 60 didn't require any of that. Her doctor recommended starting small, bodyweight exercises like chair squats and wall push-ups, light resistance bands that could be used while watching TV, simple leg lifts and balance drills while brushing her teeth, even walking with light weights around the house. The goal wasn't to become a bodybuilder. It was to restore the strength that quietly slipped away over the years. Within weeks, Susan noticed fundamental changes. Standing up felt easier. Her balance improved. She caught herself walking taller, feeling lighter, and most importantly, feeling safe. Science supports her experience. An extensive study from Tufts University found that seniors who maintained strong leg muscles reduced their fall risk by up to 40% and lived, on average, 5 to 7 years longer than peers who let their muscles fade. Susan's journey taught her something powerful. Strength isn't just for the young. It's a gift we can reclaim at any age. And the sooner we start, the more freedom we preserve. Because every pound of muscle you build isn't just strength added. It's years added. The most dangerous illness isn't always the one that strikes suddenly. It's the one quietly growing while we say, "I feel fine." Susan never liked doctor visits, the waiting rooms, the tests. They worry about what they might find. She always figured, if something were wrong, I'd feel it. But that quiet logic almost cost her more than peace of mind. You see, many of the most dangerous conditions in older adults develop silently. High blood pressure, rising blood sugar, weak bones. They don't send loud warnings early on. They progress quietly, year after year, while we continue with life, unaware. For years, Susan skipped her annual checkups. She hadn't seen her primary care doctor in nearly 6 years. Life was busy. She mainly felt fine. And besides, appointments just brought unnecessary worry, she thought. But then her friend, Carol, who was only a few years older, was suddenly hospitalized after a minor fall. What should have been a simple stumble revealed something far worse. Severe osteoporosis that had gone undiagnosed for years. Her bones were brittle, fragile, and now permanently damaged. That was Susan's wake-up call. Routine checkups aren't about finding something wrong, but about catching things before they become wrong. Early screenings offer one of modern medicine's most significant advantages. Time. Her doctor explained it simply. By the time symptoms appear, we're often playing catch-up. But if we catch issues early, we have choices. We stay ahead. For women over 60, there are key screenings every doctor now recommends. Bone density tests, DEXA scans, to catch osteoporosis early. Blood pressure checks, even mild elevations can silently damage arteries. Blood sugar, A1C tests, to monitor prediabetes and diabetes risk. Cholesterol panels to evaluate heart health. Mammograms and cancer screenings are appropriate for age. Cognitive assessments to monitor memory and brain function. When Susan finally returned for her complete checkup, they did discover early bone thinning and mildly elevated blood pressure, both completely manageable, but only because they caught them before serious harm was done. With simple lifestyle changes, some light medication, and follow-up visits, Susan reclaimed control over her health. She didn't feel anxious anymore. She felt empowered. Because when we avoid checkups, we're not avoiding problems, we're avoiding solutions. Susan now schedules her visits like birthdays, once a year, every year. It's not about fear, it's about freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing what's happening inside your body and taking action while you still have options. And perhaps most importantly, Susan learned that courage isn't about ignoring fear. It's about facing it early. At the same time, you still have the power to change the ending. The true danger was never aging itself. It was ignoring what could have been prevented. Susan's story is not unique, which makes it so powerful. Silent inflammation, lost sleep, too much sitting, fading muscle, skipped checkups. Each on its own feels small, but together they quietly steal years, vitality, and independence. The beautiful truth? None of these are irreversible. You have more power than you realize. They add up: small choices, one better meal, one extra glass of water, one short walk, a straightforward checkup. And over time, they restore the strength, balance, and confidence you deserve. So I ask you, which of these 5 mistakes surprised you the most? Or which one will you take action on today? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Just type LA60 if you found this helpful. If this video spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. It's never too late to reclaim the vibrant life still waiting ahead.